All right, let's get cooking. Welcome to the latest edition of Chin Check Sports Radio. I'm your host, JD. I want to thank you all for taking the time out to join us. And as always, we welcome any suggestions, feedback, comments, and criticisms, which improves the quality of our program, which ultimately improves your listening experience. On this particular broadcast, we're definitely going to do our preview of the much anticipated heavyweight championship rematch between the Lineal Heavyweight Champion of the world, Tyson Fury, versus the reigning and defending WBC Heavyweight Champion of the world, Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. Now, we do want to offer a little bit of an apology for producing our preview of the fight so late in the game, almost at the 11th hour. We definitely take pride in doing our previews of our big fights a few days before, or at least a week before, to kind of get people talking, to get the brains thinking about the fight. We definitely want to hear people's opinions about the fight, who they think they're going to win and why. And when we released our Chin Check Radio all-time NFL defense list, definitely got a lot of good feedback for that. Was a little bit tied up on other things, but my spirit would not sit well if that fight was to come and go and we didn't do a preview and to give our 2 cents, to give our analysis, to really break down a little bit of the first fight and how that might affect the second fight. So we're definitely doing this preview very late in the game. Now, as an unintended consequence, or you can say a good thing that happened, was we're doing this broadcast after the weigh-in. Now, definitely some weights were a little bit surprising from both fighters, but this goes back to the rematch between Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz Jr., where we picked Andy Ruiz to win the fight. However, we did not expect him to weigh almost 20 pounds more in the rematch with more time to train than in the fight that he had a short amount of time and he shocked the world. So definitely the weigh-ins was a little bit surprising, and that's something that's going to factor into who and why we choose a particular fighter to win the fight. Now, quick tale of the tape. Tyson Fury, the Lineal Champion of the world, has 30 total fights, 29 wins, 20 knockouts, 0 losses, and 1 draw, standing 6'9" in height with an 85-inch reach. Bronze Bomber, Deontay Wilder, 43 total fights, 42 wins, 41 big wins by KO, 0 losses, 1 draw. So if you heard, both draws on each guy's resume is from their first fight. Deontay stands 6 feet 7 inches in height with an 83-inch reach. Now, before we give our preview, or before we choose our winner of the second fight, let's go back and let's touch on a little bit of the first fight, where I felt was definitely one of the good boxing matches, I would say, heavyweight championship fights of recent time. Definitely action-packed, definitely a lot of drama, definitely a lot of excitement. But when you break down strategically what happened in that fight, when you go round by round, really the first round wasn't really anything of note. I felt Deontay was more of the aggressor, while Fury landed some pitter-pat punches towards the end. But you can kind of feel as the second and the third round went, you can tell that Tyson Fury started to gain his confidence after being away from the limelight of fighting at that elite level really in 3 years. You could tell his confidence started to build and started to grow. Now, say what you want about Tyson Fury, he is a showman with sticking his tongue out and putting his hands behind his back. But if you get past that, the guy has basic boxing skills. So those early rounds, clearly they could have gone back and forth. I gave the 7th, the 8th rounds to Tyson Fury. Deontay with a big knockdown in the 9th round. Tyson Fury, to me, won the 10th and the 11th round, and Deontay Wilder with a huge knockdown in the 12th, and we're going to talk about that later on. So, but when you really study that fight, Tyson Fury gave the impression that he was dominating Deontay Wilder. based on their styles, based on the perception of the ring, based on Tyson Fury's personality, it looked as if you're not a really huge boxing fan, or you're a casual boxing fan, or a weekend boxing fan, you would think that Tyson Fury really opened up a can of whip ass on Deontay Wilder. What even made it worse in Deontay Wilder's favor is Tyson Fury's defense and tremendous, great upper body movement, great footwork. I mean, Tyson Fury, for a big man, has excellent boxing skills. Deontay Wilder came to the fight game late, obviously learned at an accelerated rate to be a bronze medalist in the Olympics, which means you're the third best in the world. But you can clearly see the difference in the skill level of both men that clearly favor Tyson Fury. And again, Fury, nice fast jab, double and triple jabbing down to the midsection, bringing the jabs upstairs, mixing up the attack, moving his head from side to side, moving his upper body from side to side. Deontay is really a straight ahead, walk down to you fighter. And Deontay was thrown, but I felt Deontay looked very amateurish in that fight. A lot of his punches were very wild and wide, which, Wes, if you're listening, I know we definitely had conversations about that, about him being very sloppy, as you say. And I felt he was really exposed in this fight for his lack of technique. And I think that's why people really say that Deontay was taken to school, because a lot of his punches he actually missed, and really missed bad, really telegraphing his punches. If you really break it down, if you're a fighter in the ring and you really break down that split second that you see a punch coming, again, Deontay throws a lot of wild and wide punches versus punches that come straight down the middle, which is what Tyson Fury was doing, throwing the punches straight down the middle. So we know the quickest distance between 2 points is what? Oh, the quickest way to get between 2 points is what? A straight line. So that's something that I hope that Deontay Wilder and his team has made the adjustments going into the rematch. But in that first fight, Tyson Fury clearly has the faster hands. He is clearly the more polished boxer. Now, when you're in the lower weights, your flyweights, your strawweights, your bantamweights, your junior welterweights, your lightweights, your junior lightweights, and so on and so forth, you can always say you're always going to choose a good boxer. And to a certain extent, even with heavyweights, think of the great Larry Holmes. But what happens is, in the heavyweight division, a guy who can punch always has a chance. The guy who has that true knockout power is always has a great equalizer in his knockout punch. The problem is when the guy has that type of power who's in there with a more skilled and more polished boxer, you're giving rounds away to try to land that knockout punch. So that's something that Deontay Wilder is going to have to try to get out of that habit. He was very flat-footed in that first fight. Now, people attribute that to an illness that he had in training camp. Maybe he wasn't fast on the draw, but I thought his punches looked very amateurish. They looked very wild. They looked very wide. And it looked even worse, the fact that Tyson Fury was making Deontay Wilder miss with relative ease. I'm really going to say this. If you take away the two knockdowns, few jabs here and there that Deontay Wilder landed might have bloodied Tyson Fury's nose, maybe cut his forehead, a few jabs here and there, a few grazing right hands here and there, maybe one or two body punches I saw that Deontay landed the whole fight that caught Tyson Fury's attention. So to me, those were the things in the first fight I thought that really favored Tyson Fury was his hand speed, throwing the punches straight down the middle, and that moving from side to side. And that's further evidenced by the punch stat numbers. In the first fight, Deontay Wilder landed 71 of 430 punches. That is at a 17% connect rate. While Tyson Fury landed 84 of 327 punches at a 26% connect rate. So now that goes into, if you're judging the fight, who do you give more credit to? The guy who's landing more punches or the guy who's throwing more punches? Do you score defense? I've always said this before. I think defense is a beautiful thing in boxing. I score defense. If you see a guy who's standing in front of another man and making a miss and he's hitting the air, I have to score that. I mean, that's part of the scoring in boxing. And also that Fury outlanded Deontay Wilder in 9 of the 12 rounds. So just some statistics to support the argument if you have Tyson Fury winning that fight. So which would lead one to believe, despite 2 knockdowns, Deontay Wilder secured a draw in that fight, which means that Wilder had to be winning on the scorecards, but 2 knockdowns that pulled Deontay Wilder even. So definitely a lot of excitement. If you look at both guys' ring resume, I think Wilder has a more impressive resume in beating the Mr. Burns, well, twice, Luis Ortiz, knocking out Dominic Breazeale in the first round, while Fury, becoming the Lineal Heavyweight Champion of the world, was dethroning longtime heavyweight champion Vladimir Klitschko in November of 2015. After that, had a hiatus from the ring through various drug and mental and emotional issues, and to even see him at this level again is a testament to his fortitude. And the other big fight on his resume was the first fight versus Deontay Wilder that we're talking about now. So definitely a classic puncher versus boxer, and what people still talk about to this day, not even the first knockdown in the 9th round, definitely a clean knockdown from Deontay Wilder. Tyson Fury really wasn't hurt that bad. He kind of seemed more stunned being on the canvas. And what I find funny is, if you look at the slow motion replay, when Deontay was landed, when he had Tyson Fury trapped against the ropes in the corner, mind you, Tyson Fury started his showboat and tell him, come on and hit me, and Deontay Wilder happily obliged and dropped him on the canvas with a punch to the temple. He seemed a little bit embarrassed. He seemed stunned by the knockdown, but wasn't hurt because, again, I have him coming back and winning the 10th and 11th round. So going into the 12th round, you hear Deontay Wilder's corner telling him, Deontay, you spent that time in the heat, in the Alabama heat, go get him. Basically, a last-minute ditch effort to offer words of encouragement, to tell him that you put the work in and now the 12th round is his. Tyson Fury's corner was telling him, you're making him look very bad with the side-to-side movement. His corner was telling him that when you jab your way in, you bump him with the shoulder and wrap him up on the inside. His corner told him that you made him look too silly and he was getting a little bit too greedy by moving from side to side and also moving his head. Well, I would say moving his torso from side to side. And it seems like that last knockdown in the 12th round was because he stopped moving his body from side to side. So with 2:23 left, Deontay Wilder lands a right-left combination that just dropped Tyson Fury. I mean, tree go timber, drops. Folks, to really describe how Tyson Fury was, I'm talking about arms stretched out, both arms stretched out, flat on his back, one leg up, one leg straight down on the canvas. Deontay Wilder, as soon as he hits the canvas, he turns around, faces the crowd, starts shaking and gyrating, and the referee begins counting out at that time. And he gets up at the count of 9. And he gets up and the referee tells him, are you okay? Tyson Fury puts both hands on the referee's shoulders. The referee kind of gets his hands off of him, tells Tyson Fury to walk and come back. Tyson Fury does that. You see the look of shock on Deontay Wilder's face. You see the look of he really just got up from that knockdown where the world and Deontay Wilder thought that the fight was over. Now he has to mentally get back into the fight again to try to finish this guy. And Deontay Wilder, he is a known finisher. However, started throwing those wild punches again. He gets too emotional, and I mentioned this before about Deontay Wilder. He gets too emotional sometimes. He gets emotional, starts throwing wild punches, and with a minute 18 left, walks into a hard right hand. Got sloppy. He gets caught with a hard right hand. Now at this point, he's holding on with about a minute left, I would say, in the fight, and definitely holds on. Both guys, they finish up the 12th round. So that 12th round, to me, in heavyweight championship history is one of the great rounds. And here's why I say that. Think of 1990 Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson. And I broke this down a couple of podcasts ago. That Mike Tyson knocked Buster Douglas down in the 8th round. Mike knew at this point, this is my chance to win this fight after being thoroughly thrashed in the previous 7 rounds. He comes out, throws everything that he has, a last-ditch effort. Buster hangs on, and really was the beginning of the end in that 9th round. I go to Evander Holyfield versus Riddick Bowe, the first fight in the 10th round, where Riddick Bowe catches Holyfield with an uppercut, has Holyfield against the ropes. Bowe is throwing punches upstairs, throwing punches. You got Holyfield trying to cover up on defense. Bowe is throwing punches to the body. And then Holyfield's recuperative powers begins again to start throwing punches, at Bowe. And I remember me and my little brother Wes, we actually watched that round. I scored a fight for Holyfield. He actually scored a fight for Bowe. So another great round in heavyweight history. I also look at Evander Holyfield versus Smoking Burt Cooper. That was down in Atlanta, Georgia, where Holyfield fighting in front of his home crowd. He decides to want to fight Cooper's fight. Burt Cooper drops Holyfield with a quick overhand right where kind of Holyfield falls into the ropes. But Holyfield again, his recuperative powers, comes back and dominates that 3rd round. So even though it should be a 10-8 round for Cooper, but Holyfield made such a comeback, you can actually score that fight a 9-9 round. Let's also go back to Vitaly Klitschko versus Lennox Lewis, which is Lewis's last fight. That 2nd round, catches Lewis with a straight right hand, rocks his chin, and at that point the fight was on. And another great round in heavyweight championship history. So this fight also was another classic round, and I'm talking about the 12th round of the first fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Now, going into the rematch, and I talked about the guys' weights. Deontay Wilder weighed in at a solid and ripped up 231 pounds, about 20-something, almost 20 pounds more than he weighed in the first fight. And Deontay is known to walk into that ring weighing about 210, 212, 214, the heaviest that I know. A solid-looking 231, probably to add more power to knock this guy out. Tyson Fury, on the other hand, weighed 273 of, as he says, in quotes, of pure British beef, after weighing 256.5 pounds in the first fight. Now, you can try to interpret this a couple of ways. Tyson Fury, he did not remove his shirt at the weigh-in. So you can look at this as playing mind games, because I try not to put too much stock into that, because Roy Jones, even the great Roy Jones, not late, the great Roy Jones, said that he wouldn't take off his shirt, because especially in that fight versus John Ruiz, because he wanted to keep his physique a secret. He wanted his opponent to see his physique in the ring that day to kind of get, a mental picture of what he was going to face, and obviously to psych his opponent out. So we're not going to put too much stock into that, but it's telling you're weighing 17 more pounds than you did in the first fight. The problem with that is that takes away your mobility. Now, Fury's argument is he's going in there to knock Deontay Wilder out within 2 rounds. I hope for his sake that he does, because as the fight wears on, now that goes into conditioning and cardio, that goes into whether he's going to be able to move his head and move his body and utilize his footwork. Those advantages as a pure and more polished boxer, will those advantages be negated by the weight gain? And with Deontay Wilder weighing 231, does he even add more of his prodigious power than he has now? So those are the questions that are going to be answered this Saturday night. We're definitely looking forward to it. Now, of course, if you're telling me, hey, JD, stop all the babbling and go and give me a winner, based on the weight gain of Tyson Fury, based on, I don't know if he's going to be that same mobile fighter with the hand speed. Of course, when you start gaining weight, does that slow your hand speed down? Do you really have the same pop on your punches where you're a fast hand guy, while Deontay at 212 was scoring 2 knockdowns, at 212 has all the power in the world? Now, what does concern me again with Deontay Wilder is this whole letting rounds go by to land a knockout punch. Go back to that Luis Ortiz rematch where I thought Deontay Wilder lost every single round until that knockdown. And of course, people say, well, you see, that's the power. And Wilder likes to say that a fighter has to be perfect for 12 rounds and I don't have to be perfect for 10 seconds. And that's true. But when you get to the elite fighters, guys who you're not going to be able to just knock out with one punch, you have to start putting rounds in the bank and you cannot take rounds off. So those are the two big keys in that fight. Do I think Tyson Fury is going to win his rounds? Yes. But I would expect maybe a late round knockout, 11th round knockout for Deontay Wilder by simply just wearing down Tyson Fury, and more so because Tyson Fury has an added weight, which now makes him more of a stationary target than an agile target and a mobile target, and that's what I think is going to play into Deontay Wilder's hands. So now he's basically going to be in there with a heavy bag with feet. So that's our prediction. Deontay Wilder by 11th round knockout. Of course, we're still deciding whether to pay the $80 fee on pay-per-view or to go to a sports bar. But either way, we shall be watching the fight. And right after the fight, we're going to come right with our review of the fight. So, fight fans, enjoy the fight this weekend. We definitely deserve it. It's definitely been a long time coming. And until the next time, this is Chin Check Radio.